Hey y'all, it's Lance, and this is BraveNewLive number 2. I did a video back in March, early March, basically right when COVID-19 was really impacting all of us, and I called it BraveNewLove Live. And the idea was to do a video every once in a while and give some information about resources and then other services that I've got available or I'm working on for this community to encourage people to live authentically, or to basically create space, encourage folks to create space for other people to do so as well. I'm realizing now, oh my gosh, that I forgot my AirPods. If you can't hear me, please let me know and I'll get them and I will try to make this better. But for now, I'm just going to speak up and hopefully it's loud enough that you can hear me. Anyway, so that last time I called it BraveNewLove Live, but then I accidentally said BraveNewLive a couple times, and I think that's a better name. So it's going to be BraveNewLive. I'm going to bring it back now that I'm in this next phase of continuing on as a wellness entrepreneur with BraveNewLove, even though I'm still not able to offer massage and bodywork services due to COVID-19, but we're going to talk through kind of all of that in a very conversational way. I have some notes here on what I want to discuss, but this has not been rehearsed. So the idea is that it would feel like a conversation with a friend. That said, I want to make the most of this time. I can only spend 15 minutes on an Instagram Live video. If it goes longer than that, it'll be on my YouTube, but just be mindful. I'm just being mindful of that. I want to cover 3 things. I want to cover why my massage is paused and why it's still paused indefinitely. I want to talk through the announcement. So it's basically the new authenticity services. And then the final one is going to be kind of use cases or giving some more conversation as to how some of those services might be able to be applied to someone's life. So to start off, we're going to have the conversation about my massage services. For folks that follow me super closely, they know that I basically put a pause on my massage services back in March due to just the general concern for my safety and then the safety of my clients. And then in May, after it was made legal again to start working as a massage therapist in Texas, where I live, I went through the process of trying to basically decide if I was going to offer those services again or not. And I landed on not offering the services and basically keeping everything paused indefinitely. And the whole idea with that was because I have moderate asthma. And so I wrote a little bit about that idea and also some of kind of my own struggles on this road of having a global pandemic take away my main source of income, which was massage, in an essay called, I think it was called Counting Cows and Taking Stock. So that's on the website if you're interested in learning more, but the specifics on that aren't really the main focus of this conversation. The main thing to know is that I'm not offering massage services, and it took me a bit to decide if I wanted to continue on with BraveNewLove. But after I made that decision that I wanted to continue on as a wellness entrepreneur, I basically went back to the drawing board and said, how can I continue this mission of wanting to share stories and create space to live authentically without being able to offer massage services to support myself. So I had to get a little bit creative and kind of think through what my skills were and what I could basically offer. And based off of the different life experiences that I've had and different jobs that I've had, I landed on a couple of different things. And so I feel like my strengths lie in creating cohesive teams, motivating people in mentorship and management roles, and then ultimately empowering people to do unthinkable, or achieve unthinkable goals, whether that be cycling to Alaska and fundraising $4,500 as a young adult, or just the big goal of being in corporate America and wanting to do a good job managing like $1 million worth of business for a company and managing a team of folks to work with consultants and experts to kind of satisfy our clients' needs. I think that's also a pretty big goal, right? It's all perspective and it depends on what's going on. But again, that's kind of what my life experience was. And so I moved into wanting to continue that with the form of authenticity services. So I am now moving forward with offering authenticity services in 3 forms. One is through authenticity listening, where I basically have phone calls with folks. That started organically through BraveNewLove, actually. When I would write an essay, sometimes folks would reach out on a topic and then we'd text about it through the app. Through Instagram. And then later that started to manifest in calls. We would have phone calls, which was really cool and really eye-opening for me to just have these types of conversations. And then after having more of those and opening that up to friends and family over the course of June, while I was trying to creatively figure out how I was going to move forward, I landed on the idea that this is a needed thing and this is a service that I think all of us kind of need. This idea that someone would hold space. So it's basically combining what I did as a massage therapist, the idea of holding space for a client and truly letting them kind of take off all of the different masks that we put on for day-to-day life, right? You can think of it kind of in a metaphor as usually we unrobe or just undress to some level in a massage. So you can kind of think about that physically, but then also mentally and kind of spiritually. When I would work with clients in person, that's more or less what I was doing. And I was holding space and taking care of them in that moment. And I think that that's really needed in other ways too for our wellness, in terms of being able to authentically share our thoughts and feelings on an idea or something that's going on in our life. And then also in general, it's just awesome to hear what living authentically looks like for folks and how that's different. So that's the first service that I'm continuing to offer. It's weird to call it a service because really all it is just a phone call or a video call. It's not something that I charge for. I'm going to continue to make that just be accessible because, one, I think that it's practice that we all need. And then 2, I think it's going to be helpful, or it's kind of helping me with some projects that I have coming up down the line. One of which is to create a authenticity framework for how BraveNewLove will be approaching living authentically. It's going to be a mix based off of my own life experiences and then also the experiences of all of these folks that I'm having conversations with. The idea is to spot loose threads in our stories and our experiences and try to tie them together and then create, again, a shared type of conversational dialogue that, basically a shared vocabulary that we can use when speaking about authenticity. And then the second way that I think those are helpful for me is a project that I have coming up where we're going to be sharing everyone's stories. So if you are interested in having an authenticity call like that, please get at me. That would be amazing. I have a handful of those calls every week, and I want to continue doing that. The second one, and this is more as a service, that again, I am going to be trying out to see if I can use it as a way of making some money while I can't massage people in person. And that is authenticity coaching. And those basically are going to be focused on two areas right now. It's going to be the idea of unlearning or deconstructing an idea, either about ourselves or others or the world in general, or dealing with discomfort. And we're going to talk about that here later, again, with kind of a use case from a recent essay. And then the final piece is going to be virtual workshops. So I'm going to be doing some virtual workshops over Zoom. I've got one planned for the 18th of July and then one planned for August. The one coming up on the 18th is a Saturday. It's from 3 to 5:30. I'm still not 100% sure if we're going to use all of that time. It might more be like an hour and a half or so. I'm still kind of like finalizing the curriculum. But what that's going to be is the title is Authenticity and Wellness, and it's about applying this creative authenticity framework that I'm working on based off of these conversations to our personal lives. So basically setting up an authenticity practice for ourselves. If you already have something like that, or if you're already doing things on the wellness front that are probably helping with authenticity, it's going to be very much informed with that practice and trying to make that more meaningful for you in terms of living authentically. And then the one that's going to be coming up in August is going to be applying the same framework to creating space for other people to live authentically. So if the personal practice doesn't necessarily resonate with you, but you're interested in creating space for other people to live authentically, again, that's coming up in August. I would say sign up for either one, or just reach out to me and let's start a conversation to see if it might be something that you're interested in. I would love to talk to you about it more and kind of what that's going to look like to see if that's worth your time. And then on that front, the final piece of this video is going to be talking through deconstruction and unlearning. So on BraveNewLove, on the social account so far this week, the topic of interest has been deconstruction and unlearning. And for folks that are not super familiar with it, my recent essay really goes into in depth on my thoughts on it overall and my process on deconstructing various ideas about myself and the world based off of faith or like religion, I would say. Probably not faith, more religion. And kind of just my experiences being developed and groomed with a small town, kind of rural conservative culture, and then being like just thrown into the like I think both aspects are like the real world, but like a world where I'm exposed to more people and more ideas, and specifically the process of coming to terms with myself as a queer individual. The essay as a whole talks through that. So it goes through lots of different, what I'm calling use cases for folks that have a business background or training like me. Another thing to think about would be basically like ways to apply authenticity coaching or authenticity practice for your own life in ways that would hopefully resonate. But the topic that we're going to focus on today, with the idea that each week on Thursdays or Fridays, I'll do a video and we'll talk through another topic. But the one that we're going to focus on today is in regards to unlearning or deconstructing this American dream and how that kind of impacted my career, right? I think an easy way or an easy thing that most people think of in terms of, that makes a lot of sense that you would need to deconstruct something or like a value or a viewpoint because you grew up in a very like faith and like religious background and you're a gay person, right? And evangelical folks like there's a lot of nuance in the evangelical religion overall, and in fact like the American Christianity in general, but 2 points that almost all of them of the traditional mindset can agree on is that gay people are bad and that abortion is murder. And I talk through that in the essay. So if that's your worldview, and you have that identity, it can create a lot of problems. And it did for me. I had to leave the church and I had to do a lot of deconstruction and unlearning work just to be okay with myself. And it's still continual work to think that I have worth and value in this world, external to achievements. But it persisted even after that. It persisted in the way that I would display or curate the image that I was putting forth into the world, even after being out and gay. And it heavily impacted my career choices. And that's what we're going to be talking about. The idea that these Americanisms or this like idea of what is successful had permeated my life to the level where I was making decisions that didn't honor my authentic self in ways that I hope will relate. So I'll start this discussion out with a disclaimer. A lot of folks, when they hear about my story in terms of how my authenticity journey kind of intersected with my career, they think, oh, for you to live authentic, you needed to leave a corporate job, which is like what I did. And maybe your message, or they assume that my message would be that everyone needs to leave their corporate job, or like for you to live authentic, don't work for someone. I think that's an easy box that folks can put me in. But that's not actually my message at all. My message is that we need to be making decisions that, again, kind of reflect what we want to do. And what I mean by that is that I had made decisions over the course of my life, first with trying to do well in high school to become the valedictorian in my class, and then in college, I started as a business major. That wasn't my passion. I wanted to do something in health promotion, but rather than dropping the business major, my business advisor convinced me to keep the business degree and basically just do a dual degree, and I assigned so much value and so much of my personal worth through how other people viewed me that I thought, oh man, if success in kind of American culture means having a business degree and working a quote unquote like successful job, defined as someone that works in kind of a white collar job that's easily understandable of how it kind of is related to capitalism at large. Basically, like it was this mold that I was still trying to fit myself into, even though I was like out and gay. Like I continued that. I mean, I was in the closet at the first of college and for most of college, but even after I came out, I was still making decisions based off of that, right? And there's a lot of other things that were factoring into like how I chose my path. Finances was a big part of it, which we'll talk about in future sessions. But right now, it's just that little idea of basically that there was this script or this like shape that I was continually trying to fit into. And I think a lot of people do it. And I think that that's like can be a potential problem. It can create so much dissonance in how we see ourselves and what is like healthy for us between that and then what we are doing with our day job or what's going on in our life. So again, I explain all of that to say, I think that there's folks that do really well in quote unquote, I guess typically accepted American traditional jobs, right? I think there's a lot of folks that that is a really good expression of their skills and how they want to present themselves into the world and how they want to like live their life. I think there's other folks like myself and other members of society that are more of kind of a creative or kind of an entrepreneurial spirit. And I think I think that I'm talented, and I've proven that in my life up until when I went as an independent wellness entrepreneur. I think a lot of people like believe or like are talented in these ways, but sometimes, again, in order to be perceived as successful or perceived as valuable or perceived that we have worth, we go against maybe some of what would be best for us when we're choosing like our careers and what's going on. So that, again, is one idea of what the authenticity coaching could potentially be applied to. It would be this concept of having discussions with you about what's going on in your career and kind of basically how you present yourself authentically in that space. And again, I tell this story because I want to make it clear that like my message isn't necessarily going to be you should quit your job. In fact, I think that we'd probably explore lots of other things first before we even got to that level. My example was just so stark because it was like the person that I was trying to present was just so out of alignment with what the person that I wanted to be, right? Like, and I can go into that more, but I've always had a side hustle in the wellness space. I've been a personal trainer. I've taught group fitness classes. I have also, I worked as like a nutrition advisor for a little while. These were all things that I did in addition to trying to get a quote unquote more normal American path of like corporate jobs or things that could be seen as like corporate. Like my LinkedIn has like all of what I would consider my corporate experience, and then all of this other stuff and work that I've done that I'm more passionate about. I never really presented it in that way. And I think everyone, or not everyone, but a lot of people can relate to that in some way. So we're going to have discussions on that front. So again, it's not going to be that you quit your job at all, but it's going to be trying to identify maybe some internalized Americanisms that have maybe pushed you in a direction that feels out of alignment. So again, that would be a way that you could apply that authenticity service or that coaching to your life. So that's it. That's the use case. We're going to talk through another one next week. But again, if you want to learn or read more about my thoughts, you can read my essay. It's called The Joy of Deconstruction. It's on my website right now. Give it a check out. I did ask a question for this live. I'm going to try to include at least one like community question in each one. And the person that asked it was a fantastic question. I didn't get permission before the video to use their handle and their name. So I'm just going to ask it anonymously, and then later on, if they want to share their name, honestly, I might just do like a standalone post on this because I think it's so good. But I'm going to read the question. It says, I feel like I'm gaslighting myself. Was what I experienced actually trauma, or am I faking it? I think that's a fantastic question. And in the spirit of staying in my lane and being fully transparent on what I feel like I can help with and what I think would be best served by another expert, I will say that I'm not a trauma expert. I've experienced trauma in my own life, and I can speak to that. And I can speak to kind of my assumptions prior to going through that process. But what I would say here, and it's kind of along the lines that I would say to anyone, is that like you are your own expert about your life, right? No one really knows your life better than you because you have gone through every single part of it. Now, I still think it's important to honor subject matter experts, whether that be a massage therapist in the context of working with body work, or in this context, a mental health expert, whether that be a therapist, a psychiatrist, or even your general physician. That can be the start of this type of conversation. And so I think having a conversation with them about that trauma would be a way to go. Honestly, I think that would be like a fantastic first step. And what I would say to this person is to encourage you to believe yourself. And so not necessarily think that you're gaslighting yourself, but believe that whatever you're going through or whatever you've experienced has created some type of stressor in your life. So whether or not it's quote unquote trauma, or whether it's just something that's causing like some issues in your life, let's honor that. right? And let's honor that enough to have a conversation with a mental health provider. And again, if you were like me at one part in my life and not ready for a specific mental health expert in the form of a therapist or a psychiatrist, you can start that conversation with your general physician, and you can at least like tell them some of the symptoms that you've been experiencing, and they can make recommendations as a whole. And then finally, sharing my experience with this, I'll just say that for a long time, I didn't want to think of my life or what I had experienced as trauma. In fact, kind of growing up queer in a rural area, because of my Americanisms from that rural and conservative mindset, I kind of thought that PTSD was only something that folks in the military experienced. But it wasn't until I started having these conversations with my own mental health experts that I met in my life, psychiatrist at one point, or I continue to see a psychiatrist, and then a talk therapist as well, a couple of talk therapists along the way. I've learned more about what that looks like, and I've honored that experience in my life. And it sounds weird to say I honor it, but I basically name it now, and I think of it as something that's happened, and it helps me on my own authenticity journey and kind of in my own wellness practice for establishing what I would consider just an authenticity practice overall, and just living authentically. So I hope that answers your question. If it doesn't, and you want to just have a conversation more, please reach out. And if you didn't ask that question, but you're watching this video and you're like, I have some thoughts on that, or I want to talk about it, let's reach out as well. Let's have a conversation. Again, I'm going to be very clear about what I think is in my lane and what I think is someone else's. But I think that's a good thing. I think we should have more normalized conversations about mental health in general, and that's a big part of BraveNewLove in terms of encouraging people to live authentically. Many of us authentically have interactions with mental health that we need to just like, it's just helpful for us to, one, name them, and then two, discuss them with folks, right? Because we're just normalizing that experience and trying not to like other people that have mental health issues. So that's it. That's the live. I've got a couple of housekeeping items that I want to cover before I end, and that's talking through those services. It's in regards to basically kind of a disclaimer, pricing, and then privacy. So the disclaimer, I've already kind of gotten through it, but I'm not a mental health therapist. Again, I feel like I can help folks in the form of establishing an authenticity practice in their life. I'm more of a wellness enthusiast. And so all that to say, these services, these authenticity services that I provide, they are not mental health services. I would say that it's more in the lines of kind of like life coaching, but rather than using a whole encompassing term of I'm a life coach, I can help you with any aspect of your life, I'm kind of narrowing in on what I feel like I can help with, and that is, again, the authenticity practice and kind of the wellness practice overall. So that's what all of the discussion would be. The next one is privacy. So if we have a one-on-one discussion in an authenticity listening form or in an authenticity coaching form, both of those are private. I treat them the same way that I would treat you if you were one of my massage clients. And the fact that I don't share names or any information like that outside of us, and I think it's just important to make that known. And then the final one is pricing. So far, up until this point, I've been provided for in this like mission of sharing stories and creating space to live authentically. And I think that I will continue to do that. So I want to offer these services with the idea that folks can pay for them, but I also want to be pretty adamant that I never want finances to be a barrier to us working together. So with that in mind, I'm starting them out as a donation-based, basically sliding scale, give what you can. I've got suggested donations of $20 to $40 for the coaching sessions. It's similar for the workshops. Again, I would rather folks interact and engage with me and not let money be a barrier for that work. Like I said, we'll figure it out later, or I'll make that money in other ways. Again, I'm more interested in this work and seeing where it goes than I am on being like, I've got to be able to do this just through savings and some other I guess privileges that I have. I'm gonna try to make this pretty affordable. So all that to say, those are kind of like my housekeeping items. So that's it. That's BraveNewLive number 2. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day and a great weekend, and I'll see you next week if I don't talk to you through the Instagram account before that. All right, bye.